So, at the top of a new page, we are going to write B2, slope on a graph. My B1 only took up a page, so I'm just going to do it on the back of B1. I'm going to actually keep it open because otherwise I can't write. Whoa! There we go. Alright, so B2, slope on a graph. Alright, so for our first thing that we're going to do is we are going to define that word slope. When we say on a graph, it really means on a coordinate plane. And we're going to be talking about graphs of lines. So first thing we need is slope. Okay, slope. Okay, slope is a fraction. Sometimes we call it a ratio, but a fraction is really what a ratio is. That tells us how to move from point to point. I know this is kind of a long definition, but it's kind of important. So on a line, the slope is going to tell us how we get from one point to the next point. An ordered pair tells us how to just get to the point, but the slope tells us how to go from one point to the next. The reason we need to know that is because it's going to tell us two things about the line. It's going to tell us the steepness, so how quick does it go up or how slow does it go up or down. And it is going to tell us the direction, so which way is it headed. So based on that fraction, we're going to be able to tell those two things. Okay, somewhere, someone in algebra decided that slope would be always represented by the same letter, and that when we say that letter, we know exactly what we're talking about. Does anyone remember what letter do we use for slope? M? Yeah, a lowercase m. So if you want to put that near slope. Whenever we see that lowercase m, we know that that means slope. For some reason, someone decided that at some point. I don't know why. All right, this isn't necessarily a definition, but kind of is. I don't know. It's kind of a goofy in between. It's not a definition, but it's something we need to know. So the direction of a line. When we look at a direction of a line, we're always thinking that it's going from left to right. We read it like how we read English. Left to right. So there's 4 different directions that it can be doing. From where you are right now, what's one direction you could go? You could go up. What other direction could you do? Down. Down. You could also go right, and you could go left. From a point, there's a couple different ideas of that, of how that works. So one is if I go from a point, I'm going to go up, and I'm going to go to the right. So it's not just straight up. It's going up and to the right. And again, that's from left to right. Jay, just put the whole thing away for a little bit. Thank you. Okay, and if I go up to the right, do you think that's going to be a positive or a negative? Positive. Why would you think that's positive? Because it's going up. So if we start left, go right, it's positive. Another part for a point is I could go down, but I can go down to the left. So again, I get a nice diagonal line. But this time when I start on the left side, it's going to be going down towards that right side. So that's a negative slope. What's another option I have from moving? If I have a point, I could go straight to the side. So as we look at this, we're describing how it's moving. On this one, when I started on left and I went right, it went up, so we said positive. This one, when I started on the left and went right, it went down, so it was negative. This time, if I start left and go right, where is it going? Nowhere. Is it changing up or down? No. So if there's no change up or down, what number represents no change? 0. And you can either spell out 0 or you can write a 0. Just sometimes if I write 0, I think it's an O. So I like to write the word 0 sometimes. There's one other option. If I have a point, what if I don't go left or right at all, and I just go straight down? So with this one, we want to think left and right. Which part of the line is on the left side? Well, the top is still on this, like the same amount as the bottom, isn't it? It's not going left. What part is the right side? Yeah, there's really no left side, there's no right side. It's just there. So because there is no left or right, we call this undefined, meaning we can't think about it in a left or right way. It's just straight up and down because there is no left, there is no right. So this is a horizontal line. If you need to write that down, just to remind yourself, horizontal goes side to side. A vertical goes up and down. Those aren't the slopes, those are just the types of lines. So if you hear us say vertical line, vertical is up and down. Horizontal is side to side, left to right. All right, we have one more thing to write before we do our examples. And this is how we're going to find our slope. Okay, so finding slope. Jay, do the notes with us. Okay, so finding slope. On a graph, when I have from a point to a point, and I have that line, we're always going to start at one of the points. It doesn't matter which point we start at. I always like to start at the bottom point, because when I think of rise, what does rise tell me? Yeah, it tells me to go up. Like if you go to a courtroom and the judge is coming in and they say, all rise, what does that mean to do? Stand up. Stand up. Okay, in my culture, when I got married, when I walked in, everyone stood up because I was the bride. Okay, when the bride walks in, everyone stands up. So the person in the front said, everyone rise for the bride. What did everyone do? They stood up. So for me, a rise means to go straight up, but rise can also mean down. And then we're going to go over to that point. And when we go over to that point, we call that the what? The run. Good. So that should hopefully be somewhat familiar. So rise can mean it goes up or down. I always think of it as just up because that's the way my brain thinks. But some people like it down as well. And running can be left or right. Because if I just told you to start running, you wouldn't run up into the sky. You wouldn't run down into the ground. You'd start running left and right. So to find our slope, to find our m equals what over what?
Rise over run.
Good, rise over run. That should hopefully sound somewhat familiar to you. If it doesn't, that's a really important thing that we are going to learn. And I said M instead of slope, but remember M really stands for slope. That's actually on the front of your covers. If you take a look, that formula, find that, rise over run, it's on the front cover of the sticker. I put that on there. Fun fact. All right, what you're going to do next is we are going to glue in some graphs. If yours looks like mine, where you have kind of a lot of space on the bottom, you might cut this in half and then glue them kind of side by side, or you can go to the next page. Okay, so if you need to cut these in half, you can. If you don't have that much space, then maybe just glue it on the next page. So we're going to do 4 example problems together.
This would go up and down?
Yeah. What? I don't know. There's numbers on it. You get some of the numbers.
I know the number that I put though.
Yeah, so that's how I should do it.
Like this?
Yeah.
You divide the lines and the run.
What?
You divide and
I don't know.
divide the run.
I'm going to tell you about it when we do it together. Fun fact. Alright, so I'm going to cut mine in half because I have enough space to do 2 by 2, so I'm going to do 2 by 2 here. If you don't have enough space to do the 2 by 2, you do need to have this. Then just go on the next side. You have to use the scissors and men. Just go on the next page and glue the whole thing. Alright, and then there's glue sticks in your tubs. There's also scissors in your tubs. Glue those in. You should have all 4 problems. You can either have them all 4 in a line or you can do 2 by 2, depending on how much space you have. If you don't have the space to do 2 by 2, you might as well just keep them all together on the next page. Just do one big line. I don't know. Leave some space between them when you do 2 by 2 because we're going to write some stuff down. Alright, I'm going to use some colored pencils. If you would like to use colored pencils, you can. Or if you want to use highlighters, you could. But I'm going to use 2 colored pencils to show my thinking and show my work. That way we can kind of all look at the same ideas. I'm going to just use purple and red because that's what I grabbed. I want to use green and red. That's what I want. Alright, so for our first step on number 1, if you're not done gluing in, I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds, and then we're going to get started on number 1. So I'm going to use a pencil and 2 colored pencils when I do my work. Alright, so for problem 1, I'm going to zoom in so you guys can really see what we're doing. The first thing we have to do is identify the points we're going to use. So when I look at this line, we read it from left to right, so I start at the top. Okay, is this a point I want to use? No, why wouldn't I want to use that point?
So it's not like directly on top of both platforms?
Yeah, we want it to be directly on top of a vertical and a horizontal. So this is going to be my first point that I can use here. Okay. And then I'm going to keep following that line until I can find the other point that I want to use right here. Because that's where our lines cross. So I know right away what type of slope is this going to be. Negative. So I know in the end my answer should be a negative number because it's going to be a negative slope. It's going down. So I'm going to think rise over my run. You don't have to, no. It's up to you. It's your book. You do you. Alright, I like to start on my right side because this is going to tell me to go up. So that's why I'm going to do this the first time. I'll show you a little bit different on number 4. But I'm going to go from the bottom. I always like to rise up. You're supposed to draw on the dots. So you're supposed to find those points. That's part of the problem. And then we're going to run. So how many does this rise up? 1, 2, 3. So my rise is 3. My run is 2, but my run goes to the left. So when we run to the left, negative 2. Now we do want to simplify this. So we can use our Desmos calculator. Where's my Desmos calculator? There it is. Okay, so in my Desmos calculator, if I don't know how to simplify this, I can just type in the whole thing at once. So I can type in 3, and then I can use the fraction button or the divide by, divided by negative 2. And I want it to leave it as a fraction because slope is always a fraction. So I hit that fraction button. Okay, the numbers didn't change, but what did Desmos change for us? Yeah, the negative. Where did the negative end up being? It went on the, kind of in the front, in the middle. Either the negative usually goes in the middle on the front, or it can go to the top. Because would we ever say 3 negative halves? No, we wouldn't say that. So we can put negative 3 over 2. It rises like a balloon. Or you can put that negative in the front. Either way is fine. But we have that negative 3 over 2. On some problems, the other point is going to be at the end of the arrow. Because now if I do this again, from this point, I'm going to rise 3. Rise 3. I go over 2, negative 2. That should always land me back on the line. If this line extended, now from this point, I could do the same thing. I could go up 3 over 2, draw a point, and that's going to be on that line. That repeats. It's like stairs. All right, number 2. Before we start number 2, what do you notice about that line? Good, it's positive. So we know in the end, our answer should be a positive answer. What are we going to do before we think of rise and run? Find our points. Okay? So, where do you see a point? Right here? Right here? Okay, here's one point. Let's find as many points as we can. Where's another point? One. Right here? Why would I not want to use this one? It's on the x-axis. That's fine. Why is it not a great point to use? Yeah, we don't have that vertical line going through it. We want that vertical to go through it as well. So we're not going to use that one. What about this one? Yep. Okay, this one? No. This one? Yep. And again, this one, it looks like we can use the arrows as well if we want. Alright, so we're going to do our rise and our run. Now, some people, when they do their rise and run, they like to start on the bottom. That's me, because I like to rise up. Some people always like to do their rise and run left to right, because that's how we read the graph. We read the graph left to right, so it makes sense to always start on the left. So I'm going to start on the left. Doesn't matter which point I start at. I'm just going to pick this one because it's the very bottom one. And how many do I have to rise up? 2. And then I run 1. Is that the case if I keep doing that? 2, 1. Yep, that's the case. So it's going to be 2 over 1. If that didn't work again, if I did it and I didn't end up at a point that has that vertical and that horizontal, that means I found the slope incorrectly. Something went wrong. All right, what is 2 divided by 1? 2. So this time our answer is just 2. Now, if you started at the top, let's just do this as an experiment. If I start at this one, am I going to go up or down? Down. I'd go down how many? 2. And then I'd go over 1. So how do I show that I went down? -2. But I went to which direction? I went left 1. So left 1 would be a -1. And then what's a negative divided by a negative? Positive. So I still get +2. And we knew our answer was supposed to be positive because we said that right away at the beginning. All right, 2 more. Number 3. Number 3, is this going to be a positive or negative slope? Can we just get through these two real quick? Okay. Undefined. Why is this one undefined? Because it's straight. Straight up or straight across? Straight up and down. If we were going to find points, let's just do our rise and run for funsies. Okay, we need 2 points. So are there points on the graph? Yeah, there's points. This is a point. Here, I just picked one. Where's another point? Yeah, right below it, or I could even go like way down here, right? Any of these are points that have the horizontal going through it because they already have the vertical. Gonna kill this thing. Okay, so how much does it rise between my points? 4. How much do I run? 0. Shucks. It doesn't go left or right at all. It's a 0. So if I plug that in my calculator, oh my gosh. Okay, there we go. If I plug in 4 over 0 in my calculator, I get undefined. Why? Yeah, we can't divide into 0 groups. If I have 4 pens, how many groups can I put these into? What's the smallest amount of groups I can put them into? 1 group. They're in a group together. Can I put them in a group of no groups? Can I make these just disappear? Even if I pretend to disappear with magic, guess what? They're still in a group. We can't put them into 0 groups. They can't actually disappear from the universe. All right, last one. Number 4. Is this going to be a positive or a negative slope? Negative. So we know our answer is going to be a negative number. The points that I see right away, I like this point here because it has that vertical and the horizontal. And let's do this point down here. So we're going to do rise over run. Okay, like When I tell you guys that I like to always rise up, this is really hard for me to be like, okay, let's start on the left side. Because I want to start here so I can go up. But let's do the left, because some people like that, because we read it left to right. So if I start at my left point, am I going to rise up or down? Down. So I'm going to go down. How many? 2. So that's going to be a -2. And how much do I run? Six. I don't have any tissues right now. Jay, sorry. 6. Alright. That negative is in a good spot. It's okay for it to be at top. What is not quite right about my answer? -2/6. Simplify. Now, I'm not really testing you on simplifying, so if you don't know that that needs to be simplified, I'm happy that you were able to count 2/6 and you got negative. That's really important. Desmos is a really handy-dandy tool. It simplifies it for us. We just hit that fraction button, and it tells us our simplified answer is -1/3. For number 3, I'm sorry, our final answer for number 3 is just undefined. Okay. Whoa, that was weird. Okay. You are going to do your practice.